Accountability, without the buddy. Before we argue about accountability in coaching, there's a more basic question that rarely gets asked. What actually qualifies someone to be a coach? Not what they call themselves. Not what they've paid for. Not what they've survived. What qualifies someone to hold influence over how other people interpret their lives, relationships, and decisions? Is it the money spent? In coaching culture, expenditure is often treated as credibility. I've invested $60,000 in my development. I've done all the programs. I've trained with the best. But money spent is not competence. It proves access, not judgment. If spending large sums on personal development automatically produced capable coaches, the industry would look very different. Instead, it produces people fluent in frameworks, language, and confidence, with little evidence of proportional outcomes. Investment without demonstrable impact is not development. It's consumption. Is it surviving trauma? Another common entry point into coaching is personal adversity, addiction, divorce, burnout, illness, financial collapse, a dramatic before and after story. Surviving hardship can deepen empathy. It does not automatically confer the ability to guide others safely. Getting through something does not mean you understand it, can generalize it, or can recognize when your story does not apply, especially when the lesson extracted is simple, universal, and stripped of context. I did this, so you can too is not a method. It's a leap. Without training, supervision, and limits, trauma narratives often become the entire niche. Not because they are the most appropriate offering, but because they are the hardest thing to question. Is it finding a niche after trying everything else? Many coaches do not start with a clear scope. They cycle. Mindset coach, leadership coach, embodiment coach, nervous system coach, accountability coach. Eventually, lived experience becomes the differentiator. Not because it is sufficient, but because it is defensible. You can question techniques. You can question claims. But question someone's story and you are told you are crossing a line. That is not a foundation for professional practice. It is a shield. Is it the origin myth? Modern coaching borrows heavily from influencer culture. Rock bottom, revelation, redemption. Complex systems like timing, privilege, external support, and luck are collapsed into a clean moral arc. I was broken. I found the answer. Now I teach it. These stories are compelling. They are also non-falsifiable. They sell hope, not competence. A large audience does not turn anecdote into expertise. Visibility does not equal qualification. Science, pseudoscience, and borrowed authority. One of the most reliable red flags in coaching is the casual use of scientific language without scientific responsibility. Words like brain, nervous system, rewiring, regulation, dopamine, neuroscience-backed. These terms carry weight. They imply mechanism, evidence, and limits. In coaching, they are often used impressionistically. A tinge of science vocabulary is enough to borrow credibility, without accepting any of the constraints science imposes. That is not how science works. Science requires clarity about what is being claimed, what is not being claimed, what evidence supports it, where the limits are, what would count as disconfirming evidence. Pseudoscience does the opposite. It uses scientific-sounding language to create confidence while remaining unfalsifiable. When questioned, it retreats into metaphor, lived experience, or popularity. That's not what I meant. It worked for me. Hundreds of people feel the same. None of those are explanations. They are deflections. If a coach invokes the brain, science becomes relevant. You do not get to borrow biological authority and then opt out of precision when asked to explain it. Using science responsibly means narrowing claims, not expanding them. It means saying this is metaphorical when it is, and we don't know when you don't. If your claims collapse the moment someone asks how they work, the issue is not skepticism. It's misrepresentation. So what actually makes a real coach? Not certificates alone. Not money spent. Not trauma survived. Not reach or charisma. A real coach can do something far less impressive and far more important. They can explain what they are doing and what they are not doing. They can distinguish story from evidence and metaphor from mechanism. They can name limits without reframing them as mindset problems. They can tolerate questions without attacking the person asking them. They can stay present when outcomes are uncomfortable or messy. And critically, they can be held to account for their language. Because language is influence. And influence carries responsibility, whether or not that responsibility is acknowledged. Accountability, without the buddy. This is where coaching culture quietly fails. Accountability is almost always framed as something the client needs. Be accountable for your habits, your consistency, your mindset, your follow-through. But when accountability points back toward the coach, toward their claims, framing, or impact, the tone changes. Questions become threats. Clarification becomes hostility. You are not doing the work. That is not boundary setting. It is narrative control. If accountability only ever points downward, it is not accountability. It is authority without oversight. Real accountability is symmetrical. It tolerates scrutiny. It survives records. It does not require disappearance when challenged. A coach does not need to be perfect, but they do need to be precise. If you cannot explain your claims, tolerate scrutiny, and remain present when harm is named, you are not practicing accountability. You are practicing power, dressed up as care.